You're listening to Game and Chat, where we level up with conversations about gaming then and now. I'm your host, Daniel, aka One to Switcheroo. So let's press start and game on. Welcome everyone to another episode of Game and Chat, streamed directly to your favorite podcast platform. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, or all of the above to support the cause. And with that being said, we are back again, everyone. Episode 8 is here. I hope you guys are doing well. I am doing really good, actually. We just came back after our Nintendo 64 episode, and somewhere in between, we just had that crazy Nintendo Direct that happened last week that still kind of blown away with how much the Switch is left in the tank after all these years and after so many bangers of games that came throughout the years. Seems like they're really pushing to break off that record of being the best-selling console of all time. And with this lineup, ladies and gentlemen, I think they're actually gonna go for it, and it's gonna happen because, oh my god, these games that were announced, let's just go over them real quick, because before we even begin what this episode is about, we need to discuss this real quick. Mario & Luigi Brothership, starting off with that, it was just mind-blowing. We all thought that the studio was shut down, and it is shut down still. I'm trying to recall the name. I do not recall the name right now. Something Dream? I don't remember. However, we just got report from Nintendo. Some news reporters said that some of the teams that work on the original Mario and Luigi games, Alpha Dream, there you go, that's where it is. Some of the original people that worked for Alpha Dream before they shut down are actually working on this game, which makes me such a relief. And you know, it's the very first Mario and Luigi game on a Nintendo console. Who would have thought that we will have 3 mainline Mario RPG games, being Super Mario RPG, Thousand Year Door, which I'm loving so far. I'm like midway through the game, and it's been a freaking delight every time I get into the game, to the point that I'm hooked, and I kind of want to keep playing just because I'm getting very involved in the story and where everything is going. So really enjoy my time. And now, very soon also, we'll have Mario and Luigi Brothership. And I'm so excited because out of the 3, this is my favorite Mario RPG like franchise. So I'm so happy that they brought these guys back, and I am very excited to see that. And to think that that's not even the biggest announcement of this freaking Direct. We also had our very first Zelda game. Sounds like that. It's our very first Zelda game, people. Echoes of Wisdom. We finally, after years of begging and clamoring from the people, we have our playable Zelda. And now it's up to Zelda to save the kingdom. In a very interesting take. Tears on the Kingdom-y, like 2D Zelda platform game. And the way that how you use the rod, the tri-rod, I think they call it, to make copies of objects that you can use to interact with the world. It basically, we're getting our little pocket Tears of the Kingdom version with Echoes of Wisdom. This game came out of nowhere. Everybody thought it was going to be the Oracle remakes. I kind of wish there was the Oracle remakes. I love those games so much, but hey, I'll take this. Much better. Our first game as playable Zelda. Super excited. Coming in September. That is like tomorrow. And that's the thing with this Direct. All of these games, the majority of these games, they're actually coming this year. The only one, or one of the only ones that is going to come out next year, ladies and gentlemen, Metro Prime 4 Beyond. So many years of waiting for news, for any grain of information, especially after development was reset and it was given from Bandai Namco to Retro Studios, as it should have been from the very beginning. And watching that footage was just a bliss, and it was made all these years of waiting so much worth it. I'm still working my way through Metro Prime Remaster, but it's just been amazing what we saw there, and to know that it's actually running on Switch and it will come on Switch in 2025. It's almost nothing but guaranteed that it's going to be a cross-platform title. By that meaning it's going to be released on the Switch and then also on the Switch 2, Super Switch, whichever you want to call it. And wow. And some other minor announcements too, like Super Mario Party Jamboree, what it seems to be the biggest Mario Party to date, and how incredible that is, that we're kind of getting like a mix of both Super Mario Party and Mario Party Superstars. Honestly, it would have been nice if they wouldn't expanded upon Superstars. I think the formula was there, and with just DLC could have held us together until the next console's Mario Party. But if they really learn through what people really like from Superstars and bring a couple of things that were innovated in Super Mario Party, because yes, the game might not be as compelling, but it has its positive strengths, then I think we're up for a treat. And I think Nintendo wouldn't taking this step if they weren't sure by it. It's the biggest Mario Party yet, so as they claim. So we kind of wait to check that out. And you know, so many other announcements. We saw the footage for Lego Horizons, which was very bizarre to see the Horizon game on a Nintendo Direct, mentioning Aloy, PlayStation Studios, and all that jazz. And also, we also had, which is very, very surprising, Marvel vs. Capcom, the collection, including Marvel vs. Capcom 2, which was a title that you can only get, if I'm not mistaken, through an arcade machine. Otherwise, it was going to be emulated. First being re-released after so many years, and so many people were so waiting for this to happen. It's just amazing. And all these games, all the collection really, really looks super cool. And that's another one that I'm keeping my eye on, because it's gonna be great. Something tells me it's gonna be Shadow Drop at some point, so I can't wait for that to happen. But anyway, I mean, yeah, a quick recap of the Direct, because we couldn't just begin this new episode without mentioning it. And oh my god, like, just when we thought that the Switch was quote unquote dead, they came up with this lineup, and now it's like it has more games, more new games coming out than any of the other guys out there. I would say that once again, Nintendo stole the summer of gaming from the other companies. I mean, PlayStation barely showed anything. If anything, Xbox had a great presentation. I think, like, for a non-Xbox player, they really had a lot to show and really get the people excited. But Nintendo really knocked it out of the park with all these out of the blue surprises. But anyway, that is my take on the Nintendo Direct, and that's how I perceive how it's gonna really help the Switch to get to that benchmark, that very, very important milestone, which is taking the best-selling console of all time. It's gonna happen. Trust me, it's gonna happen next year while the other console releases. But anyway, back to the subject at hand, guys. Like I said, it is episode 8, and today, guess what? Banjo-Kazooie, it's turning 26 years. Damn, I'm old. Therefore, I think it's time to tell you a little tale about a bear and a bird who stole our hearts really, really back in the day, and how it really made an impact on 3D platformer, which followed up by Super Mario 64, which was the groundbreaking title who opened the doors to this magic of 3D platforming for the very first time, and how Rare were smart enough to take on that basis and expand upon on the same console on a much, much greater scale, to the point that this, ladies and gentlemen, is the better 3D platformer. And it is one of the reasons why I love this bear so much, and how it really knocked my socks off when, after so many years, they were announced as playable characters in Super Smash Bros. to the point that I almost fainted because I couldn't believe that I was watching that presentation. I will end up like that, and I keep rewatching that reaction over and over again from people, and it's just a bliss. And it's time for us to talk about it. Why Banjo-Kazooie is so cherished and how was so influential, back in the day. Yes, you might say that these characters or this franchise is kind of irrelevant because, of course, yes, people have been clamoring for it, but it seems like the developer, they don't care. I don't know why it's that, to be completely honest, because the demand is clearly there. The merch is clearly there. The people exciting about these guys and sharing memories and so many titles that were inspired by the collectathon and, dynamic music. So many features that this game brought in for the first time or expanded upon the Plumbers game. It's just, it can't be ignored. And we're gonna be here to remind you guys why Banjo-Kazooie was one of the best, if not one of the best platformers of all time. So sit back, relax everybody, and welcome to episode 8 of Game and Chat, the everlasting love for Banjo and Kazooie. And of course, we're gonna start with a little throwback. I mean, the whole episode is a throwback. What am I talking about? We're talking about how development came to be because, of course, this was a brand new character in the 90s that basically was just born with this game. But fun fact, it wasn't actually, because Banjo's first appearance, long and behold, was in Diddy Kong Racing, also the better kart racer, which eventually will get its own episode. But that's where we saw the bear for the first time. And yeah, when we saw it there for the first time, you may seem like, oh, it's just it's just another character in the roster, just a random animal, as they say. It was all about Diddy Kong's racing card game, and he was just along with the game, just a character that needed to be created to fulfill the roster. But who would have thought that Rare had bigger plans for this guy? And not only that, but the fact that the whole Banjo-Kazooie game was supposed to be something completely different. As it was mentioned by its creators, it used to be, the original concept of this game used to be called Project Dream. It was supposed to be some sort of platforming RPG a la Zelda-ish Dragon Quest. The protagonist was also like a human-like character, and it was supposed to have elements of transversal platforming, but with RPG elements as well. And there's also a footage of how that used to look like. And come to think of it, who would have thought that would become actually Banjo-Kazooie, that game that we love and cherish today, to the point that they show the sprite of that random character from the game and how he will kill monsters and all that, and then they replaced the sprite with banjos and moving it around, and everything started to make sense. And that's what the approach and the direction of this game started to go to what we know today. And of course, being developed by Rare, which came from such a huge hits like Donkey Kong Country on the Super Nintendo, how much ahead of its time that game looked on the SNES, with the atmosphere, the graphics, the music was just out of this world, and it still up until this day sounds great, even for Super Nintendo standards, and that's just incredible. And later on, with the release of GoldenEye 007 and how they defined the first-person shooter experience and multiplayer experience, were one of the first who made that, and it's made a huge impact and the legacy that carry on all FPS and first-person games in general moving forward. And now, with his first attempt of 3D platforming, taking inspiration from Mario 64 and the amazing things that Super Mario 64 did, and scale it to levels that we didn't seem possible on this console, pushing it to its limits and giving us the gift of one of the best, if not the best, 3D platformer of the Nintendo 64 era, which took the focus from platforming to exploration and collection. Banjo-Kazooie was one of the very first collectathon games. By collectathon, I mean that there's so much to collect in every single world, and so much replayability to the point that there's no corner in every level of this game that is not visited. Whether you're collecting jiggies, whether you're collecting the musical notes, whether you are saving the Jinjos, and so on. Every single inch of the world is used and made for a purpose, and that's what makes this game so special, because there's no wasted space. Basically, you just go explore the heck out of it. Sometimes you might need an extra ability, and yeah, there's some backtracking. People might be a little bit hesitant when it comes down to backtracking in games, but I think that for Banjo-Kazooie it really helped how you can just, come back for a specific jiggy because you either need the boots or the running shoes from Kazooie in order to access it, and how then it opens new areas and new ways to explore the world, which makes the replayability even much, much better for this amazing title, which puts Rare as maybe the number one Nintendo 64 third-party developer out there back in the 90s. The fact that they were able to not only get inspired and be up to par with Super Mario 64, but taking a step further and make it a delight in visuals, in music, in gameplay. It's just out of this world. And I think that team that worked on this game so many years ago, 15 people to be exact, and were the ones that created this masterpiece of 3D platformer. And up until this day, these people are still around, and they have made so many amazing things afterwards. And I'm pretty sure that the majority of them would like to work on a remake or a remaster or a brand new Banjo-Kazooie game, because what are we waiting for, people? Like I said, the demand is there, the nostalgia, the public, the audience is there for the game. It's time to bring them back. I know it's early to say this on the podcast, but come on, people, please give this bear and bird a chance, and sure, you won't regret it. But anyway, back to the subject at hand. This is one of Rare's crown jewels on the good time in the 90s, before the whole Microsoft buyout happened and all that, which we'll mention at some point how affected the legacy and the continuation of Banjo and Kazooie's trajectory on the gaming history and gaming years so far. But for what it was, it's still up to till this day one of the best examples on how to make an engaging and an amazing 3D platformer, and how it still holds up until this day, with so many 3D platformers out there that haven't quite got it right. Maybe they need to take a few books about this amazing game and all its perks. And speaking of perks and features and stuff, that's our next subject. Let's summarize this game a little bit, just to have a concept of what it is about. So, story of Banjo-Kazooie, pretty much cookie cutter, the 90s. Very much inspired by your fairy tales, Disney-like, damsel in distress situations. So, long story short, Banjo lives in Spiral Mountain with his good old friend Kazooie, sassy little bird that can get a little obnoxious every now and then, while Banjo is more on the laid-back guy who just wants to relax. And then we have Tootie, which is Banjo's sister, considered to be the fairest girl or animal, I guess, on the land, and how that will upset Gruntilda, which is our main villain. Gruntilda Winky Bunyan, that's the whole name, as she does not like to be mentioned by her whole name. Grunty for sure, she was just the evil hag that was just jealous about Tootie getting all the attention and how beautiful she was and this and that. So guess what? She goes on a quest to kidnap Tootie and build this machine to basically transfer Tootie's beauty elements to her so she can become the fairest of the land. Very Snow White as intended, but with the whole Banjo twist will make it all interesting. So then Banjo finds out that Tootie is kidnapped, so he grabs Kazooie along the way. Not that she was very up to the task at first, and they decide to go through 9 worlds and endure challenges to save his sister and bring peace to Spiral Mountain once again. So that's the story pretty much. That's how we go. But right now we're just gonna talk about how this game really stepped it up on the gameplay mechanics and replayability, as we briefly mentioned just a moment ago. This is what I call, for the 90s perspective, this is what I call platforming excellence. We are talking about that, how it took inspiration and evolved from Super Mario 64 and took all those elements of exploration and open areas and took it to 11. And that's all because the gameplay mechanics and the moveset that they gave to Banjo and Kazooie to interact with this world. And of course, focusing on exploration and collection, knowing that every single corner of this world, there's something to find that will help you on your quest. They need to have a broad moveset to do so, which is why it's very, very amazing how Spiral Mountain on the very beginning is such a great tutorial area that you just learn the basics of the game and you see how many tools you have up at your disposal from the very beginning alone, and then how on each world and as you progress in the game, you'll be adding more and more abilities to your arsenal, and it really, really takes the whole experience to another level. And, you know, is also very attentive from Rare to be able to just skip the tutorial. You know, sometimes people don't have time to these things, you just want to jump into the action, figure it out for themselves. When you get out of the house for the very first time to explore Spiral Mountain, eventually make it to Grunty's lair, you are greeted by Bottles. Bottles, our little mole guy who is such adorable with his that sounds like a dog, but whatever. You guys know what I mean. It's just amazing. And his whole banter, calling Kazooie names and Kazooie calling back, it's just a delight. The dialogue in this game is just mind-blowing. Not only for the sound effects, that and then Kazooie just that alone, it just gets like in your head, that those like sound effects don't leave your head the moment you hear them, and will continue throughout the game. But the dialogue itself, when you take your time and actually read it, is very, very smart comedy that could be a little, you know, sometimes it could have some innuendos to it and could be more like adult addressed, but not in a dirty way, to put it simply. But anyway, you are greeted by Goggles, look at me, that's how Kazooie calls him. You're greeted by Bottles, and Bottles will offer you to show you how to move around, but you also can say no. And when you say no, you say, okay, all right, well, just go figure out yourself, because you need my help. And then you just flee to explore. remember when I said on previous episodes, it's good to have options. It's good to give the player options. That makes the gaming experience much better. And Rare and Banjo-Kazooie did this and knew this from the get-go. The fact that you're able to just skip the tutorial, jump right into gameplay, and just figure out things for yourself is also okay. You don't have to lock the player in for a whole hour and a half just to learn something if they just want to learn it themselves. And I think that's completely fair, and how many games still kind of miss the point on that. There's no need to make a long and tedious tutorial. Or maybe there is a necessity to do that, but just give the player the option to move forward or move faster, or just don't do it at all. But anyway, we are then released into this world and we decide to explore, and then eventually when we have all of our moves mastered, we head up onto Grunty's lair, and that's how we start exploring a little hub world within Grunty's lair. And we start tackling the levels one by one. Each level will showcase a challenge and will like increase on difficulty as it goes. But then here, the main collectathon, of course, the main object to collect, as Mario has the stars, Banjo has the Jiggies. The Jiggies, 10 per level, sounds like a lot at first, and mostly are by doing errands for NPCs in the game. But the majority of these actually have a lot of meaning and context, and even the actions that you do in this game will affect on the long run. It's not like you will just make the quest and then get the Jiggy and then they erase their memories. Like, your actions have consequences, not major or not like groundbreaking, but you actually made an impact on the characters that you help, and they will remember that as they carry on for the remaining of the Jiggies. It's not like a one and done kind of situation like when in Mario 64 you go star by star, but then it's like every star is like you completely starting over but just doing a different star instead of the one that you did. Here everything carries on and everything moves forward with you, not only in one level per se. You might see these characters going to other levels, and knowing that, for example, this is a broad example, this character that was in Mumbo's Mountain, but he used to live in Treasure Cove. So you find out this character in Treasure Cove again that you help, and now he's there to, maybe he will give you another Jiggy now that you make it to this world. But my point being that the interactability and how you help these characters, and it might sound silly, it might sound like purposeless at the moment because the task, of course, is very straightforward or not meaningful at all. But the fact that carries on and you get some sort of like continuity while you progress in the game is just great, and it makes it even more engaging because then it's like a friend. You help this person and then you see him a few days later and say, "Hey, how are you? Remember how I helped you? Remember how you helped me? Thank you so much. Hey, here's something else that I'm doing that I might need your help with." So it's kind of like a familiar feeling, and it really gets you attached to some of these characters as you helping them out. Besides the Jiggies, you also collect the musical notes, which is kind of like a love-hate situation in this game because, at least on the Nintendo 64 version, it was kind of a pain in the ass, not to find them per se, but to die and start over again. And I know what you're thinking, and I'm thinking it too, looking at you, Rusty Bucket Bay, and your freaking vents and that freaking Jiggy on the turbines of the ship that I hate so much and I die so much. Yes, that is the worst level of the game. There's no discussion of that. But yeah, so the thing about this is that these music notes will actually help you transverse through the world. So that's very important to collect them. They're not just there just to be laying around and whether you collect enough not to achieve it 100%. You actually need a certain amount of these musical notes to actually move to Grunty's lair and discover the new levels, which gives him an extra purpose in the game. Instead of like, and there might be a lot, and on the Nintendo 64 it might be excruciating, especially when you die, when you need to start over, but it makes it even, again, much rewarding that, Mario 64, you will have, you need 5 stars to open this door, and then you just open the door and you're done. Here, it's like, I feel like, it might sound like a little bit of extra work, but it's even more rewarding because it not only could open the access to the next level, you will see other bonus rooms or other cool stuff that you will use to enhance your experience later in the game, which makes it great. And again, thank God for the Xbox version that actually fixed the whole musical notes reset thing. And now, if you die, you won't lose all the musical notes. You just need to get the ones that you're missing. Thank you, Xbox. Thank you, Rare Replay, I should say. I wish you would bring that feature to the 64. But anyway, it's there. And of course, the other big one will be the Jinjos, which are these dragon goblin like creatures, which there's 5 or 6 of them on each level, if I'm not mistaken, which you need to save. Although, I mean, some of them are just literally walking distance that, you can just save yourself, especially after you touch them. They just go flying. So why don't you do that in the first place? It's not like you're being trapped or something. There's actually one in the bottom of Treasure Cove right on the pier that you start the level with, and that is hilarious to see just the guy underwater laying there, not dying or anything, but it just adds to the satire and the the absurdity on this game's comedy and take on humor. So that's why we mentioned the collectathon aspect, because it's not only the Jiggies, you also have the musical notes, you have the Jinjos, and all of this will actually affect your gameplay on the levels going forward. And, it adds replayability. And like I said before, some of these Jiggies or Jinjos or other aspects in the game will require you abilities that you get from other levels, so you will need to move forward in the game in order to come back. It's not that kind of game that you can just grab all the Jiggies and move on to the next one. I tend to play my games like that when I have the opportunity, but then there's games that you simply cannot do that. So I just move on, and then if I have a certain ability, then I'll go back and get those Jiggies and those collectibles that I missed. But all this is just because of how the whole dynamic between Banjo and Kazooie and their moveset combine to make the gameplay experience even much, much better. And we're talking about, all the abilities that they get, not only at the beginning, but then as they move through the game, and how every surface of the game is well used, because you not only can traverse, but by platforming on the ground, you eventually will learn how to fly with Kazooie and use the red feathers to fly high and reach new platformings. And can I just say that thank you, Rare, for getting flying mechanics somewhat right in this game. After Mario 64, the wing cap is just terrible. The whole going up and down to gain speed and all that, I don't know. I always felt like it didn't make kind of sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Whereas in Banjo-Kazooie, you will just fly, and then you'll use feathers to gain some height and just fly around without worrying of falling down or just going all the way down when you're trying to pick up some speed. It's just, thank you for making flying in Banjo-Kazooie less stressful than it was in Super Mario 64. And also the swimming, of course, the underwater in this level has so much meaning, and there's so many things that you can find underwater in this game that you actually have to be able to swim on every pool of water that you see in each level if you can, to discover something. And except for Treasure Trove, that you'll find that freaking shark that will traumatize you if you were a kid in the 90s, and the whole tun 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 to the whole music, it was just terrible. Yeah, it might sound like silly right now, but that was kind of stressful back in the day. And it's just, like I said, adds to the atmosphere, adds to everything this has to offer. But again, Banjo-Kazooie is dynamic on solving puzzles. And, somebody said, well, Banjo just, they're both animals. People will claim animal cruelty, but it's just animals interacting with animals. If it's between animals, it's fine. It's nature's calling, as they like to say. If Banjo likes to slam Kazooie with a ground pound on the ground, or just grabbing him and, like smacking him down to kill enemies, then, it's not animal cruelty. It's just nature, There's no humans hurting animals in this game. But anyway, it's just how this combination and the abilities that you get. I mean, in just the very beginning, on Mumbo's Mountain, when you get the eggs and the Talon Trot, which, let's face it, the Talon Trot is how you're gonna move through the entire game after you get it at least 85, 90% of the time. So, literally, best move in the game, because it just makes you move so much faster. And for those speedrunners out there, I'm sure that move is a blessing and a curse at the same time. So it's just how diverse you have movements to interact with the world, which again doubles whatever you had in Super Mario 64, because in the end of the day it was just jumping and then the caps that you will get on certain levels. But you have all these new abilities with Banjo-Kazooie at your disposal the entire time, of course with the exception of the transformations, which will also bring an extra level of cuteness and creativity in the game. Can I say the transformations are actually very, very cute in this game? And how they turn into these adorable things, like a termite on Mumbo's Mountain, or you turn into the crocodile on Bubble Gloop Swamp, or in Frizizi Peak, was that the walrus? Yeah, the walrus, and so on. And for some reason you turn into a Pumpkin and Mad Monster Mansion, but hey, listen, game's creativity, we'll leave it at there. But the transformations and how silly but yet really cool they are to use, and how each one of them will adapt to the level and make the transversal really, really, really cool. It's just amazing. And how you discover them for the first time is also really good, with the introduction of what it is, Mumbo Jumbo, and this whole feel and his whole demeanor and humor, which is really, really cool. My point being that all these elements that we just mentioned, combined with great level design, with amazing musicality, sound effects, made such an amazing experience that still, up until this day, again, very cherished and very present with so many us Banjo-Kazooie fans out there that have been neglected for so long. I'm very glad that even after Banjo-Kazooie got announced on Smash and eventually released, people picked up this game for the first time and fell in love with it as much as we did. And it's all about how it came to be and how Rare and its 15 people that made this game found the perfect recipe for 3D platforming, which consists of amazing gameplay, humor, and replayability. However, I think like where this game really excels is on level design and sound design, which is the next topics we're going to talk about right now. And this is where Banjo-Kazooie really takes the nostalgia up until this day to another level, because I would dare to say that more than the gameplay itself, we mostly remember this game because of the amazing level designs that it had and how interactive and quirky and funny and broad they felt back in the day, but also accompanied with one of the best soundtracks in gaming ever. And the fact that it was made by a single one person, because you can have an amazing game with a great level design, but if the music and the sound effects and the key moments where the music changes or the interactions require a certain sound or musicality to play through, then the game is just not gonna work. And this is something that it really excites me, because this is a person that I really admire since my early moments of gaming. We'll get there in a moment. Let's talk about first the worlds, of course. We already mentioned a couple of them, but let's list them all. Banjo-Kazooie has a total of 9 levels. Let's see, you have 8. I mean, if we count the hub world and the starter world, that makes it 11. So let's start off with, of course, Spiral Mountain. Like I said, one of the best tutorial levels out there, only because of the fact that you can skip the tutorial if you want, and they just explore the world. That just puts 5 points above most of tutorial levels on any other games, both classic and recent. Of course, we have Grunty's Lair, Gruntilda's Lair, which is the hub world, which you transverse as you complete previous levels and keep collecting the musical notes, so you gain access for deeper and deeper in the lair. Then, of course, the next levels would be Mambo's Mountain, Treasure Trove Cove, Clanker's Cavern, Bubble Gloop Swamp, Freeze Easy Peak, Gobi's Valley, Mad Monster Mansion, Rusty, Bucket Bay, and then Click Clock Wood. Personal favorite, I want to say Treasure Trove Cove. I mean, you cannot unhear the that soundtrack is literally the first one that comes up into my mind. Every time when you tell me Banjo-Kazooie, it takes me back to Treasure Trove Cove, because again, the world, you know, that kind of like the tropical beach kind of feeling of the level, and everything out there just like literally triggers with when that song plays. And I would say the other one that kind of like brings me back nostalgia, Freeze Easy Peak, one of the best like snow holiday-ish levels in Nintendo 64 just in general, just because of how, you know, cheerful it is. Although then you have that annoying and obnoxious snowman that throws you snowballs every now and then. And I actually just recently learned that it's an aimbot. Actually, it was programmed as an aimbot, so it's gonna hit you at some point no matter what, which is kind of crazy that happens. And of course, we have Click Clock Wood. It's again, I love the mechanic of Click Clock Wood, just because you have the different seasons and how on each season, like the landscape and how you explore the world changes. So it's very, very cool to see that. And they're able, you know, again, this is one of the things that are really amazed when this game got created, because you could just make a flat world, but the fact they're able to pull off Click Clock Wood, that you will, by changing the season, it will affect the gameplay. It's amazing. I mean, for Nintendo 64 standards, and looking back in the day, that was something very, very hard to do. And they managed to pull that up, and it still has a really, really good soundtrack. And so on. I love video game music. That's going to be a whole topic on itself, but a lot of the games I remember is just because of the music itself. But back into the level design. These levels are so diverse within each other, which, yeah, at my point, it might feel a little bit self-contained, and on the fact that, you know, some of them will require you things from other levels to transverse. However, at the same time, it's just the diversity of each of single one of them and how they change the way you play. It's just great. I mean, Mad Monster Mansion, you might think that it's just a mansion, it's a smaller scale and that's it, but there's so many tricks and gimmicks inside the mansion itself and in their surroundings that it really keeps you busy. Like, I got stuck in that level back in the day for a while, some of the jiggies, I really had to go back and do some research, because even up to like recent gameplay, because I didn't remember it that much. Cranker's Cavern is just funny with the whole like metallic shark that poor guy is just being used as a waste disposal. I feel bad. You feel bad for the guy in the end. It looks creepy at first, but then when you think about it, the guy's just living a miserable life, you know. We just want to help him somehow. Gobi's Valley is great too. It's, you know, your quintessential desert level. And the only thing I would say about Gobi's Valley is that, it's a inspired like Egyptian level, so there's gonna be a lot of pyramids, but everything looks so similar to at some point you might feel lost a little bit. And that freaking labyrinth that you need to like either clear, I think you need the running shoes to clear it, or I don't know, just be very skilled if I don't remember correctly. But then you have that music that keeps like adding and going faster as the clock ticks down. It's just stressful but memorable for sure. And again, it's just, you know, everything. I think that every level in this game really take away something different. Whether Mumbo's Mountain is your first transformation as a termite, and you know, the fact that you're learning the talent trot, your first movements, and just like the first world itself, like Treasure Core for me is the music and the environment, and again, Freeze Easy Peak, the holiday kind of like feeling to it, and again, Rusty Bucket Bay on how freaking hard and excruciating that is, especially if you lose a life. I can say something particular on each on one of these levels, and it's again adds to the replayability and the way that they were designed to be so different within each other. It's just great. But this is the part that I wanted to get. None of these levels and none of this gameplay and none of this game wouldn't be as charming and amazing as it is if it wasn't for the music. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk to you about Grant Kirkhope. Grant Kirkhope, composer of Banjo-Kazooie, really made a huge landmark on video game music composition and soundtrack like ever. The moment that I learned that he was the composer from the game, and then all the works that he had afterwards, you know, he also made GoldenEye 64. He composed for that game. More recent ones, the Mario & Rabbids game, like it really has a level of charm and a level of care and cherries and like happiness in each composition. Yeah, I mean, you can say that about GoldenEye too, I guess. But you can tell that he's so passionate and so invested on what he does, that up until this day he still holds on high regards Banjo-Kazooie, and how basically this is one of the games that opened the doors for him in the gaming industry when it comes down to video game music. And his whole soundtrack in this game, from the title screen to the end credits, it's just top class, A+, amazing. Grant Kirkhope, I don't know if I ever gonna hear this, but I admire you. I hope I get to meet you one day and you sign my Banjo-Kazooie amiibo that I have boxed in just for you to sign. You are amazing, sir. Keep doing what you're doing, and I hope that if Banjo-Kazooie gets a remake or a new game or a remaster, whatever it is, please be involved. I'd be very happy that your hard work and your amazing tunes and sounds continue to pay off. And again, thank you for giving us one of the best soundtracks and music of all of our childhoods. The gaming industry and the fans of the gaming industry loves you. Keep doing what you're doing. You are amazing. And with that out of the way, of course, let's talk about how he, along with the game designers and the level designers, just really make this game came to life with the sound design. And, I mentioned this actually on my Nintendo 64 episode back in the day. This was one of the first games, if not the first game, if I'm not mistaken, that introduced to adaptive music, aka dynamic music system. What this is how the games nowadays, if you're doing a certain action, let's say you're in the hub world and then you're approaching your next level or your next world that you're gonna about to explore, and how the music and the instrumentation changes on the fly right there, no loading screens. Well, that happened in Banjo-Kazooie first, or Banjo-Kazooie was at least one of the first who did that. And just from the get-go, because you don't expect to hear anything like that, and then you go to Grunty's lair and you start approaching one of the levels and you notice how the music changed on the go so seamlessly. It was very hard to believe. And not only it was just based on your location, but also based on like actions as well. For example, like when you go in the water and then you start like diving in, and how the music turns into that iconic water-like music instrumentation that a lot of games uses now in the day. When other games would just use the same track, they just had the swimming sound effects. But then the fact that they're able to do this like on the fly makes the experience even more immersive. And this is one of the games that have the best sound designs out there, just because of how great the dynamic music system works, and how this really, really took the soundtrack and took the standards for video game music and instrumentation to a whole other level that a lot of games had a hard time to keep up even back in the day. And again, it's one of the things that I remember the most, because again, music is great. Gruntilda's Lair is another one that sticks in your head. And so on and so on. Like, this game has a lot of things to remember, and it's thanks to the music, and it's thanks to the level designers and Mr. Kirkhope himself. Again, sir, amazing job with this game. Thank you so much. It's really, really great what you guys were able to achieve, and how this carried on for the future. How all these elements created a masterpiece that is Banjo-Kazooie up until this day. And yes, like I said, the game is not perfect. It might have some certain things that could have been improved on, that were improved on Banjo-Tooie eventually when the sequel came out a couple of years afterwards. But it's always the first one that will stick in your mind. And I think like Banjo-Kazooie is one of the best, if not the best, first entries on any game franchise that has more than one entry, I should say. It really is an everlasting love, and all the fans cannot wait to see what's next. And I mentioned this, and I want to save this for last, and it's pretty much where the episode like stands on. The way I say everlasting love, because it's been 26 years since this game came out. Then we got the sequels, which we have Banjo-Tooie, which was a direct sequel of the 64. Then we had that bizarre GBA release, Grunty's Revenge, which honestly I haven't played. And then we got the black sheep of the franchise, which is Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. My story with Nuts and Bolts is that I never played it because first, design, what happened, and the gameplay, I know it was there, but then I started to see the whole like car construction, Minecrafty things, and didn't appeal to me at all. I feel like it wasn't that game anymore. And funny enough, I can think back now, Tears of the Kingdom took a lot of inspiration to the mechanics on Nuts and Bolts because of the building situation. But yet again, after that, the franchise just went dark. And, you know, with the whole, right after Rare was acquired by Microsoft, it was just like, it just stopped. And, you know, thinking back, it's like, of course, we have Mario. Mario's going to be the one and only 3D platformer icon. There's no denying about that. I love Mario. Mario's going to be the ultimate character for me. But Banjo-Kazooie really was up to par back in the day with Dan, to the point that his game was better than Mario 64. His game was better than Mario Sunshine. Let's put it that way. Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie were better than Mario Sunshine that came in on the GameCube. It controlled better, the levels were better, everything was better about it, and it makes a statement. And, you know, to hear the fact that they were actually trying to develop the third one, and then the whole acquisition came in, and then you just got thrown out of the water. It's sad, because what have kept this game and this franchise alive since then is the fans, and the love and the appreciation that we have for all this game, these characters, this music. As I said before, it's just unbelievable. And, you know, like, we got Rare Replay when it got re-released on the Xbox, and we got all those quality of life improvements, which was amazing. But for us was sort of like yeah, thank you for like fixing some stuff and like remaster a little bit. But it kind of feels wrong playing it on the Xbox. This is a game that belongs to Nintendo somehow. It's very hard to explain. Yes, the Xbox version might be the better version, the improved on version, but there's something about the Nintendo 64, and again, going back to my previous episode, and how fun memories of all the amazing games and like single player and platforming experiences that are related to Nintendo 64 games. And this was part of that library. I'm glad that the Microsoft Xbox franchise were able to experience this through to Rare Replay, which in the end of the day is the better and the most efficient version to play this game. It's just that even after that went dark again, and again, it wasn't because the demand is not there. See the trending topics in gaming. There's always conversations about Banjo-Kazooie, and you know, the best proof of this is the Smash reveal. This is something that came out of the blue, beyond impossible back in the moment when right before it happened. It was a dream that a lot of us had since the GameCube days when Smash Melee came out. And how cool would it be to see Banjo-Kazooie in Smash Bros. Because it made sense at the point being seen as a Nintendo character, and how it took so many years up until 2019 to be revealed, and how brought back so much joy and memories and happiness to a lot of us out there that thought that the bear and bird were kind of dead in the industry. And that really spiked up and revitalized, it rekindled that flame and that spark for these games. And we've been nothing but clamoring. We keep seeing every Xbox showcase, hoping that this will be the day that they will bring them back. If they don't bring them back, get them back to Nintendo. They will bring them back. It's time. It is time, especially now. We'll see when Yooka-Laylee, the new version, comes out next year. I think it's next year, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, Yooka-Laylee got a remaster before Banjo-Kazooie. How crazy is that? And if that game does well, I want to put my conspiracy hat right now. If that game does well, we might see something happening next year. I really want to think so. And with the new Switch coming out and the new partnership with Microsoft and Nintendo, I really hope that that dream of seeing a Banjo game back in a Nintendo console will become reality. Like I said, the demand is there. Just make it happen. It is time. Let's do this. This is a game that, again, I keep replaying in my every single time. I played a lot during my childhood, and up until this day, I did a replay a couple of years ago. I'm about to pick it up back again, just for the sake of this episode. And you know, it's just, like I said, it's just, even looking at the graphics and like my information sheet here about the game, it's just, it brings happiness, and is one of my best cherished gaming memories out there. And I believe that everybody deserves a chance to experience this in a much greater scale, whether it's a new game, whether it's a remaster. Banjo-Kazooie, it's time to wake up, and it's time to bring them back. And with that statement, this is the end of the episode, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I really appreciate it. Again, this is one of those other games from back in the day that really made an impact on me. I have a whole shrine of Banjo-Kazooie right behind me, which I will share on social media to show you how much I love these characters. And I kind of wait to see what's next, because there's something next. I'm sure there's something next. We're just waiting for the right time to see it. So if you guys want to wait with me, please subscribe, follow, all of the above to support the cause. I really appreciate every single one of you that has tuned in on every episode so far. And of course, the invitation is going to be for the next one. Again, your support has meant a lot. It's been really fun making this podcast, and we're going to keep going and keep going and keep going until I run out of voice. But anyway, thank you so much for listening, everybody. You guys know where to find me. X, Blue Sky. You can also find me on twitch.tv/123cheru, streaming live every week, or catch out the VODs at youtube.com/@123cheru. For everybody else, I hope to see you on the next one. This is Daniel, aka 123cheru, again, signing off. Game on.